ESPN 94.1 FM and AM 930 present The Drive. Brought to you by Huntington Federal Savings Bank. Local then, local now. Member FDIC.
We are here on a Friday, getting you set for the weekend. Welcome in. It's The Drive on ESPN 94.1 and AM 930. I'm your host, Paul Swann. You can be a part of the program by calling the White Claw phone lines at 877-420-TALK. That is 877-420-8255. White Claw Hard Seltzer, it is made pure. Our text line also open this hour, 304-523-2275. That's 304-523-2275. Thundering Herd getting set for its bowl appearance tomorrow, and the New Orleans Bowl will have complete coverage of that matchup. Also, Marshall basketball in action tomorrow as well. So we've got sort of a double header planned for you. The Thundering Herd get underway about 9:15 tomorrow night for kickoff. We'll have our usual post-game coverage of that. But tomorrow, the Herd's set to take on UNI. That is set for a 4 o'clock tip at the Cam Henderson Center. We go on the air at 3 o'clock. You can tune in to our pregame coverage. Then we've got the basketball game. We'll come back, recap what happened with the basketball game with our normal postgame, and then we'll get you right into the football broadcast so you won't miss anything. So keep it locked right here on ESPN 94.1 and AM 930 or on 93.7 The Dog. It is bowl season, and for those of you tuning in to our coverage of the Bahamas Bowl, Toledo, Middle Tennessee. Now, that doesn't say must-see TV to me, but since it was a Conference USA matchup against a MAC school, we kind of follow Conference USA just a little bit. You know, Marshall used to be in the MAC, so yeah, we were paying attention to that one earlier today. So that kicked things off at high noon. And guess what? Middle Tennessee beat Toledo. Maybe you want to rethink joining the Mid-American Conference. You beat Toledo. Maybe you can beat a few more of those teams and be a little bit more of a contender. Maybe Middle Tennessee finishing the season 7-6. You know what that means for Rick Stockstill? That means a contract extension. I don't lie. I'm not kidding you. He had a winning record with all said and done. So 7-6, that's a winning record. So now he gets another extension on his contract. So he gets another 1-year extension. Is that a good thing? 7-6, and the coach gets I like Rick Stockstill. I like Middle Tennessee, don't get me wrong, but is that a good thing? Just, hey, I had a winning record. Yeah, coach, you won 7, you lost 6. But I had a winning record. Okay. But, so with the win and his contract, he had a pretty good contract here. You got to look these things over. So he gets a 1-year contract extension. That'll take his deal through December 31st, 2028. And that's just over $800,000 to its value. So if you're looking for a coaching change in Middle Tennessee, not happening. Middle Tennessee will be consistent. I don't know if they're going to be able to be competitive in the new Conference USA. I mean, you got Western Kentucky there and then just a collection of other schools. I don't know. You know, maybe they think they can be competitive. Liberty's going to be in there as well. Maybe he can be competitive with Liberty. Probably not. I don't know. But congratulations to Middle Tennessee, the winners of the Bahamas Bowl, the bowl none of us wanted to go to. Well, who am I kidding? I could have gone anyway. I couldn't have gone to the Bahamas Bowl. But, hey, as a Herd fan, you get to go to New Orleans instead of the Bahamas Bowl. But Middle Tennessee opens up bowl season with the win 31-24. And the Blue Raiders went off in the second half. They go win 17-14 deficit at half, and they go on a 17 – I mean, we're using basketball terms here, but they go on a 17-0 run here to take a 31-17 lead midway through the fourth quarter. Got to hold on, but you still win it. You beat Toledo, so Toledo loses to Middle Tennessee in the Bahamas Bowl. Toledo now dropping to 7-6. So if you're a Toledo Rockets fan right now, you're feeling pretty, if you're a Toledo Rockets fan, you're already feeling pretty it's default speed for you. You start off feeling pretty. You wake up in the morning, you're a Toledo Rockets fan. Does it get any better? And the answer is no, it does not. So guess what? Conference USA, undefeated in bowl games right now. Marshall's going to try to continue that tomorrow by taking on the champion of the Sun Belt, 23rd ranked Louisiana in the R+L Carriers New Orleans Bowl. Marshall wins this. Marshall is the de facto Sun Belt champion, announcing its presence. And if Marshall loses this, and by a substantial mark tomorrow, Sun Belt's going to go, and this was the big deal we were all talking about. So a lot on the line here for the Thundering Herd tomorrow. How do you think the Herd's going to fare? Does Marshall win this one, and by how much? Text line is open now. 304-523-2275, 304-523-2275. I'm looking for Marshall winning or losing, and by how much? Or how bad does the Herd get beat tomorrow? What's the number here? Don't give me the Vegas odds. I want your gut feeling. What happens tomorrow? Does Marshall win this game, and by how much? Or does Marshall lose this game, and by how much? So that's your first text assignment. And again, the number is 304-523-2275, 304-523-2275. Or tell me if you stuck around. You decided to stick around for Herd basketball instead of going to the bowl game. And of course, we do have Marshall basketball to talk about. We'll do that. We got to get into a lot happening with the NFL. Part of my day is trying to figure out what we're going to do here, because the NFL, lots of COVID again, and NHL as well. You thought the pandemic was over. You really thought the pandemic was over. You really thought that this was going to end. And I'm sitting here today looking at some of the press conference videos and photos, and you see media members covering the Herd. Maybe some are masked up, some are not. Okay. NFL, and we're talking the NFL here. You would think of all organizations, the NFL would be able to lock this down, but not the case. And the NHL, not doing a very good job either. And I can't wait to see what happens with the NBA. Baseball, they're just locked out, so no worries there right now. But we got games that are going to be postponed. We got games that are going to be moved. We got games that may or may not be made up. All of that. If you thought the pandemic was over, you're wrong. If you thought that, oh, hey, it's going to be great, we're going to go to games again, and we're not going to wear a mask. Well, the problem is a lot of you are going to games and not wearing your mask, and a lot of people are putting you at risk, and a lot of times you're putting yourself at risk, or you're putting others at risk. Guess what? The pandemic is not going anywhere right now. We see, again, the indicator here with the shutdown of some games, some postponements. You loosen up the protocols a little bit here. This is what happens. Or just, we've been doing this for, 2 years now? Just about 2 years? And we still haven't figured out how to navigate this and to lock this down. So we'll talk about what has been impacted. I know a lot of people are grumbling right now. And some people are just grumbling because, fantasy sports are a thing. And so when your players are moved out of a slot, and there are a lot of people who are using gambling now as a way for entertainment, there's a lot riding on players playing, and all of a sudden your world has been shaken and turned upside down. So we'll get into that. We'll get your phone calls and your text. Again, the text line, 304-523-2275, 304-523-2275, with the phone line, 877-420-TALK, and again, 877-420-8255. More coming up. It's The Drive on ESPN 94.1 and AM 930.
This is The Drive with Paul Swann on ESPN 94.1 FM and AM 930. Presented by Huntington Federal Savings Bank.
Our text line is open now at 304-523-2275. That's 304-523-2275. And the phone line is always open for you as well. 877-420-TALK, brought to you by White Claw Hard Seltzer. It is made very pure. You thought the pandemic was over. Well, here's what has happened. It feels like it just blew up, but we knew this was coming. It's been a gradual descent into here we go again. So the NFL right now postponing 3 week easy for me to say, 3 week 15 games because there are so many COVID-19 issues around the league. So that announcement coming out today. Saturday's game, which was set between the Browns and the Raiders, now a 5 p.m. game on Monday. So you have to give it a couple of days, right, to make sure you have enough players and you have enough prep time. So the Saturday game is now a Monday game, 5 o'clock. Why? Well, obviously they don't wash their hands in Cleveland, as the Cleveland Browns have 23 players on the NFL's COVID-19 reserve list. That includes Baker Mayfield. That includes your coaching staff. You have members of your coaching staff on the list, all testing positive for the coronavirus this week. Now, the NFL trying to do the very best it can to accommodate the league schedule to have games at the same time, not go out there and put, I don't want to say a bad product on the field, but you have safety concerns. You have to make sure you have a full complement of players that are prepared. You just can't throw some guys out there. This isn't one of those sports movies where you get a couple of guys off the street here and you go in and you win the big football game here. This isn't one of those fantasies. This is the National Football League. So Cleveland, big culprit here, going through a lot of issues. And, of course, some of this can be breakthrough cases. Some of this can be people who have not vaccinated. And this is also maybe not following protocols. You feel comfortable now. Oh, I'm vaccinated. I feel comfortable. Or, restrictions are being eased up a little bit. Hey, let's go out to eat. Because after all, I have to walk to the table with a mask on, and then I can sit down and take the mask off because after all, the table is going to shield me from the COVID, right? No, it's not. So whatever the workplace protocols are, you have this game being postponed. Now, that's not all. The game between the Washington football team and the Philadelphia Eagles and the matchup between the Seattle Seahawks and the Los Angeles Rams, both are postponed until Tuesday. So Tuesday, 7 p.m., both games will kick off. I don't know about you. I'm okay with some Tuesday NFL football. I don't know how you feel about that, but I'm down with that. The Rams have placed 29 of its players on the COVID-19 reserve list. The Washington football team, also a victim of not being able to wash their hands, 23 players on the COVID-19 reserve list, including both quarterbacks, first and second stringers, right? So this is not looking good for the NFL. I'm sure the league is trying to reevaluate, well, what's the protocol? What are we doing right as a league? What are we doing wrong as a league? What are our players not doing correctly? And, of course, you could be doing everything correctly and still get this because someone else is not doing something correctly. So it might not be a matter of you just have a lot of guys maybe not following the protocols. Just eventually you're going to take your mask off in certain situations here. And you hope that everyone goes through the protocol so you can take your mask off. And you're competing with athletes that are COVID-free. But this is going to break out in a locker room. If someone's not doing their due diligence or someone gets inadvertently infected, it can happen both ways. You could do everything right and still come in contact somehow. Because after all, the people who think the mask is 100% going to protect you, no, it's to mitigate. That's part of the process. It's not the ultimate stopper here. The vaccination, the mask, the distancing. There are a lot of things that go into this. The mask is to mitigate. The vaccination is to help protect you, and you're trying to cut down transmission. Yeah, so there's a lot going on here. So the NFL right now, players are coming down with this once again, and we're going to be in the same situation we were last year. I don't think we're going to see wholesale shutdown. We're not going to see the NHL go into a bubble. We're not going to see the NBA go into a bubble. I don't see how that happens. But now it's got into college basketball. Something that we thought would happen just hadn't happened yet, and now it's impacting college basketball. So the calendar's kind of been shaken up a little bit. Kentucky is playing North Carolina now because you had games between Duke and Loyola and games between UCLA and North Carolina, which were scheduled for Saturday, got canceled due to COVID-19 issues with UCLA and Loyola's program. And so now Duke and North Carolina have filled the schedule. Duke's taking on Cleveland State. And Kentucky, which was impacted by Ohio State, now will play the Tar Heels in Las Vegas. I mean, the Wildcats are already getting in the process of being there and getting set up, and Ohio State can't go because of COVID-19 issues there. And so, guess what? Tar Heels and Wildcats, that's our game coming up tomorrow. We'll go on the air at 3:30 on our sister stations, 92.7 and 98.5 The Planet, and Cat Sports 93.3 and 1340. And, of course, another top 25 game postponed or canceled. This one, number 16 Seton Hall, was set to take on Iona, but that game can't be played because of COVID-19 protocols at Seton Hall. Now, I'll tell you what, here's one way to maybe make sure athletic departments try to clamp down on this. If you have to call a game because of COVID, it should be a forfeit. Now, I know no one's going to push that through. But if you lose a game because the opponent can't play, instead of a cancellation, if it's a cancellation, you don't know what's going to be made up, well, that's a forfeit. That's a forfeit. I bet this will clean up a little bit better. You have to start forfeiting games. I mean, what if Ohio State had to forfeit to Kentucky and said, we can't play that? Interesting thought there. Do you think that would work? I don't think you're going to get to the point where you have that. And then, of course, my favorite league, the National Hockey League. So the Colorado Avalanche and the Florida Panthers are going to have to shut down through December 26th because they got to deal with positive cases here as well as the spread right now. The Avalanche are going to lose 4 games. That means I got to go reset my fantasy hockey lineup. Least important thing here. But right now, somebody is getting mad. And let me tell you, you talk about Twitter being a dark place where people go to spew. Do not read the message boards on Yahoo Fantasy. Hey, I think I'm going to add this player. Let me check out, see what people are talking about. Okay, well, that wasn't safe for work. Let me exit out of here. Oh, yeah. So you're losing games, and I think the NHL is going to have to postpone games because you can't keep going out there with rosters that are depleted. It's just not safe. I don't think it's safe. Sure, we're talking about professionals, but in the previous days, we've had to call players up to fill roster spots, not necessarily saying that they can't do it, but there's a difference between guys that are NHL ready and guys who are trying to get NHL ready. I mean, the Calgary Flames, they've been shut down for several days now. Now that shutdown goes through December 26th, and the Flames have missed 6 games since the shutdown began on Monday. So they will have missed 6 games since its shutdown began Monday. As of Wednesday, the Flames had 16 players in the COVID-19 protocols. 16 players. 16. And then Montreal Canadiens and the Boston Bruins, that game postponed. So the Canadiens are going to play the Islanders on Monday. And that's what's basically happening here. We're seeing it start spreading through the NFL. We're starting to see it spread through the National Hockey League. Now, it's going to be different for the two leagues because the NFL, it's once a week. You take on a different opponent once a week. In the NHL, you can play 3 or 4 opponents in a week. 2's on the light side, 3's average, 4 pretty good. You can have 4 games against different opponents on a given week, and that means you've got opportunity to spread this if you don't catch it. How stringent is the testing? What are the protocols like? And this is going to continue and continue and continue. And it's going to hit college. Luckily, we're getting through college football right now, so whatever happens, Marshall's going to play its game tomorrow unless we find out quickly that there's a rash of COVID going through the New Orleans Bowl, which I hope that's not happening here. I'm using that as illustrating a point here. Here we are. And then are you going to be a little bit more aware? Like, okay, maybe I need to tighten up what I'm doing. Because let me tell you, you're looking at me sometimes. I'm in Kroger. You're looking at me with my mask and you don't have yours on. And I think you're just looking at it because it's usually my New York Rangers mask. And you're like, hockey? Okay, some of you don't even know what that is. So I'll give you the benefit of the doubt. But yeah, sometimes I roll with the Bengals mask. I got the Bengals mask. I got the New York Rangers mask. I have a Kelly Green mask as well because, when I show up sometimes, when I was going to football, try to color coordinate here because some time ago I wore clothes to a Marshall game and it wasn't green. There was no green present. And a couple fans were like, why aren't you wearing green? Okay, I'll wear green. I'll wear different shades of green. So I had to have the Kelly Green mask, just to blend in. But you get the point here. You're looking, some people are looking at, and, we're getting to the point now with the pandemic. It's starting to impact the things we like, sports. These are our favorite toys here. Thankfully, we don't have any word or any indication that basketball is going to be impacted tomorrow. Marshall taking on the UNI Panthers. That's coming up. Are you going to the game tomorrow? And so, or are you just going to, you're going to feel good about, okay, I'm going to sit here and watch the game without my mask? Are you going to mask up if you haven't been? Just to be on the safe side? How you feeling? Like, okay, I'm going to go to this game, but I'm just going to take some extra precautions here because I've been doing everything right. So I've got my vaccination. I got my booster. I'm going to wear the mask. I feel good. I know it's not 100%. Nothing is, but I feel good. So I'm going to do my thing properly. Or are you going to go, I'm just going to hold off here a little bit. Where are you at on that? 304-523-2275. Our text line, 304-523-2275. If you are an avid gambler, is this impacting your day? If you're a fantasy sports player, and I don't mean you're doing it for fun and you're enjoying it, you're a little competitive, but you're doing it for fun. No, I'm talking about you live and die by this stuff here. You're like those guys I see on those documentaries on a yearly basis where you do dumb things because somebody lost your league and you have the fantasy hockey trophy that's been in existence for 20-some years that you made out of some spare parts in your garage. Are you mad about this? More coming up. Today's edition of The Drive on ESPN 94.1 and AM 930.
This is The Drive with Paul Swann on ESPN 94.1 FM and AM 930. Brought to you by Huntington Federal Savings Bank, the local bank that's here for every step of your life's journey. Member FDIC.
We have basketball action tomorrow. The Thundering Herd taking on the University of Northern Iowa Panthers. Marshall's final home game of the 2021 calendar year. Welcome back to The Drive. Paul Swann, your host on ESPN 94.1 and AM 930. This should be a fun one. I say that. It's like my thing. This should be a fun one. Should be a fun one. Marshall taking on the Panthers. Marshall should get the win in this one. Let's just go ahead and call it what it is. Marshall's going to come out hopefully fired up, losing at Ohio, losing in Athens, 75-65. I think you got to give credit to your freshman standout, Obina Anachili-Killen, 8 of his 11 field goal attempts. He scores 18. I love his play. I like how he comes out. He's getting close to double-doubles all the time. He has rebounding going for him. He has stealing going for him. He's got blocking going for him. It's like all the things you want a basketball player to do, he does. And then you had Tavion Kinsey. Tavion, I think teams are going to key in on him more. So Marshall's got to find a way to get some of the other weapons doing what they need to do, making shots, because I think other teams are going to key in on Tavion. Tavion gives you 15 points. He was 7-9 from the free throw line. He had 7 rebounds. Maybe not a Tavion Kinsey night. I mean, 15 points is pretty good for a lot of players. For Tavion, he knows he can do better. He wants to do better. And I like the play of David Early as well. He had 14 points, and Andrew Taylor had 11. I'm not saying that this is going to be an easy one, but the Panthers, of course, and this isn't going to be playing the Bobcats in the Convocation Center. This is not going to be one of those type of games. I think the Thundering Herd wins this one tomorrow. I think Marshall comes out a little bit more agitated, losing to Ohio. You don't like to do that because, again, the close proximity of this game, the rivalry of it. Panthers, however, do have a little momentum on their side. They won over Jackson State in Tuesday's contest, 66-56. They don't turn the ball over. They're really good about that. They do not commit fouls, so they're a good team as far as ball control, hanging on to it, discipline. So you're not going to get to the foul line a lot. You're not going to get a free throw here, maybe. That's kind of my feel for it. One of the players to keep an eye on tomorrow will be A.J. Green. He leads the Panthers in scoring with almost 18 a contest. And I'll tell you what, it's going to be fun tomorrow. I know, again, that's my thing. It's going to be fun, but it's true. It's going to be fun. Dan D'Antoni will have his comments after the game. We'll get you set for Marshall coming up tomorrow, taking on the Panthers, University of Northern Iowa Panthers. Remember when this used to be a Marshall football game and the 1AA playoffs? You go, who's Northern Iowa? You look at some of these teams, because, again, it was new at the time. Marshall was playing teams you never seen before because you're in the playoffs and you're starting to get good at this football thing. It's like, who's Northern Iowa? Where are they? Obviously in Iowa, but where? They're in the northern part. Okay, but where? Basketball is a little bit different. You play so many teams, but in football, this was a game. You would see them. You would see them in the 1AA playoffs. Like, it's Marshall versus Northern Iowa. And that meant something. The basketball game here, yeah, I'm not hyping it up. I'm sorry. I can't hype this one up. I promise you. It would be nice if I could, but I can't. Marshall should win this one. If Marshall doesn't, I'm going to have a difficult time explaining why I made that statement during our post-game show coming up tomorrow. We have interesting things to talk about when we continue. We will recap what has been happening. We're trying to figure out what the sports schedules are going to look like over the next few weeks. We will get your text in. You can join the program at 304-523-2275, 304-523-2275. The phone line, 877-420-TALK, 877-420-8255. More coming up on this edition of The Drive, ESPN 94.1 and AM 930.
This is The Drive with Paul Swann on ESPN 94.1 FM and AM 930. Presented by Huntington Federal Savings Bank.
Final segment, today's edition of The Drive on ESPN 94.1 and AM 930. Next time you'll hear from me will be on Saturday for Marshall basketball coverage. Then we'll have our football postgame show. We'll do the basketball postgame in the middle of all of that. Then I'll be back for the next Thundering Herd game after that. Other than that, we've got bowl games galore coming up over the next couple of weeks. So an opportunity for me to take a few days since I won't have a show. We have plenty of bowl games. You're going to have lots to do over the holidays. I hope you find some time to spend plenty of good time with your family. Don't worry about just the crazy stuff. Just find that good time that you can spend with your family. Do some fun things. I mean, if you're a parent, you get to spend some time with your children. Do that. If you don't have anybody for the holidays, find me on social media. I'll talk to you. I'll keep you company. We'll find a way. We'll do it. Whatever we need to do. But next week and the week after. Now, I'll be around next week. The week after, though, Bill Cornwell is going to hop in for me on the 30th. I appreciate him doing that. I'll be with you to start things off on the New Year Day. We've got basketball. Southern Miss. I'm doing this off the top of my head. Marshall and Southern Miss on New Year's Day. We got bowl games, of course, coming up as well. So all of that happening here on the radio station. So just wanted to take a moment to say thank you for everything. It's some days it's kind of a struggle to do this. Some days, the struggle is, real and you don't understand what's going on and you still go through it anyway. And other days it's just, I'm happy and having a great time coming in here and, every day's different. So thanks for coming here every day with me and allowing me to do this with you. So, all right, that's going to do it for this edition. Thanks for tuning in. Be back on Saturday for basketball. After that, we'll be back after all the bowls are over. Enjoy your weekend, everyone.
WRBC Huntington, W231BS Huntington, broadcasting from the Oscars Breakfast Burgers and Brew Studios. This is ESPN 94.1 and AM 930.
The following is an exclusive presentation of bowl season radio from First Team.
There's one goal, one mission. Dominate every play, and we'll see what happens at the end of the game. Let's go.
From Exploria Stadium in Orlando, Florida, this is the 2021 Tail Greeter Cure Bowl. This evening, the Coastal Carolina Chanticleers of the Sun Belt Conference take on the Northern Illinois Huskies, champions of the Mid-American Conference. Now, with the call of tonight's game, here are Jamie Say, Landry Burdine, and Despina Barton.
This time of year, it's all about finishing, completing the legacy of a season. Tonight, for the 9-4 Northern Illinois Huskies, the mission is to drive home an historical turnaround.